Hello Internet, it's 2 weeks and 2 days until my top surgery. I'm very excited about it and also just a little tiny bit incredibly nervous because it's surgery and it's big and it's scary and yeah, but mostly excited. I thought as it's coming up so fast and I'm doing all the preparations, it would be a good time to do a video on the journey so far. Partly this is just for my own record, just to look back on and see how far I've come when I'm through the other side. But also because when I was trying to find out any information about getting top surgery in New Zealand for a non-binary person, there isn't any. I couldn't find any official information. The best information I could find was a solitary post on Reddit, and that shouldn't be where you're getting your medical advice from. On that note, this information will hopefully soon be very dated, because I have heard from people in gender minorities Aotearoa that there is a new pathway being developed, and I think it might have already be under trial in Auckland. It's gradually, they hope, going to be rolled out to the whole country, which will make transition journeys of all sorts a lot easier in New Zealand. But until that happens, this is my experience. Just for context, I live in Christchurch, so I'm in the CDHB region, and I'm non-binary. My personal choice is not to take hormones, and that has definitely affected what my options were. The story so far. I've been thinking about top surgery for a few years now. Just quietly had it in the back of my mind as a possibility, which I always just dismissed because the little bit of information I had been able to find was that while it's perfectly possible to get top surgery as a non-binary person, it's difficult to get it publicly funded, and that even more difficult to get it without taking hormones first. So I didn't have a lot of hope. But at the beginning of this year, I thought, if I don't ask, then it's definitely never going to happen. So I went and saw my GP, and as predicted, he didn't know very much either. I mean, his first question was, so what does non-binary mean? He was great. He admitted that he had just had no training at all in transgender, gender diverse topics. But with me, he went to the CDHB website. There's a section of that only doctors can access, and so he went into that section and looked it up, and there was literally one paragraph on the referral process for getting surgery, and that paragraph pretty much said the patient should have been living as the other gender for a certain number of years. I mean, what is the other gender? And then you can refer them to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist refers them to an endocrinologist to get hormones. And then the endocrinologist, after X number of years, will refer them to be on the surgery waiting list. So, yay, I really don't want to take hormones. That's not something I want to do. And that's when the doctor said to me, have you considered going private? And my immediate reaction was, I can't afford that. I don't have health insurance. Mostly in New Zealand you don't need health insurance, so I've never got it. So I kind of dismissed that. So he said, I can refer you to a good psychiatrist I know. I know that she is one of the experts in transgender health, and maybe she can give you better advice on how to navigate the public health system and whether it's going to be possible. So I rang up and made an appointment to see her, got an appointment in March. I had to pay for that because it wasn't an official referral, it was just here's the number of a psychiatrist. That wasn't horrifically expensive. I think it was $190 for the session. It was like an hour-long session. It was a really intensive session. Seeing her was really interesting. Obviously, she asked a lot about my gender identity because that's what she was there to assess, but she also went in really in depth to a whole lot of personal things that I don't know, maybe I should have. I've never been to a psychiatrist before, so I didn't know what to expect, but yeah, she was asking me like about my relationship to my parents and what my childhood was like, asking me about my sex life. There was a lot of really personal questions came up. But it was also really good because it was a chance to fully explore my motivations for wanting top surgery with a neutral person who asked the right questions. And so that kind of started to solidify in my mind that, yeah, this was something that if it was possible, I was definitely interested in doing. I asked her about whether it would be feasible to get it done through the public system, and she said no, just it would not happen because, for exactly the reasons I suspected, that being non-binary it doesn't preclude being accepted by the system, but it's not as easy, and that definitely I would have to take hormones first. That's the only pathway the CDHB accepts. But she said, if you do consider going private, I've got the name of a really good surgeon who previous patients have gone to and had fantastic results from, and I'd be happy to write a referral letter for you. Her office was out in Sumner, so after the appointment I went and sat on the beach and contemplated life for a while, and I thought, okay, so public's not an option. If I want to do this, I'm going to have to pay for it myself. So I need to investigate fully. I need to at least find out how much it's going to cost. Is it even feasible? I mean, I'm recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Does that make a difference? Is the surgeon going to take one look at me and say, no way, we can't do that? So I booked in to have a consultation with the surgeon. I mean, that costs another couple $100 just to talk to a surgeon for 5 minutes, but it felt like a small investment. Even if I didn't go ahead, at least I'd have all the information. I met the surgeon in April, and he of course took a very detailed medical history from me. He got me to undress the top half so he could measure and examine, and it was quite weird. Somewhere in the middle of that examination I realised just how divorced I am from my breast, because he was lifting them up to measure underneath and all sorts, and I didn't find it embarrassing or anything, because it was just it felt like I just had so little connection to these bags of flesh that he was moving around that just happened to be attached to my body. So yeah, I think somewhere in that process was the moment where it just clicked. It struck me just how unattached I am to these things that are attached to me. And the surgeon was not at all concerned about my diabetes. He said that's something that can be easily handled, that's just the anaesthetist's job to keep me alive. I said I'm obviously fit and healthy, so I seemed to him to be a very good candidate for surgery. We also talked about recovery, and he said probably 2 to 3 weeks off work, 4 to 6 to be like have full movement back, because obviously when they're cutting up under here, like you can't then lift your arms or do anything like that. And then we talk costs, and things got a bit scary at that moment. Actually the costs weren't as high as I'd feared, but they were still big numbers. He couldn't give me an exact figure because his fee was a flat fee, but the fees for the anaesthetist and for the hospital fees for the renting the operating theatre, all that sort of stuff, were very time dependent, and he said until he actually started the operation he wouldn't know would it be 3 hours or 4 hours, so that could make a few $1,000s difference. But the quote he gave me was between $15,000 and $17,500. So big numbers, yes. Not as big as I'd been fearing. So he said he had a surgery slot available in June if I was interested. I said, no, let me go away and think about it, and probably not that fast. I probably want to do it a bit later than that. So I went home and looked at my finances for a while. And like I said, having started the process and having had those conversations, I realised just how much I did want to do this. And I looked at my finances and it was gonna be tough, but I could do it. It meant using money that I had saved for things like replacing the carpet and doing up the bathroom, which really needs something doing to it. But I can do that anytime, you know, I'll just save up again. This seems more important. Why renovate your house when you can renovate your body? I don't have any doubts about the surgery itself, and I am absolutely confident I want it, and I am absolutely confident I'll be thrilled with it. Spending that much money, that's scary. But it's important, and I think it's worth it for how much more me I'm gonna feel. I've had a few people ask me, did I consider going overseas? And I did briefly, but I didn't like the idea. It would have been significantly cheaper going overseas, although I would have wanted to take a friend with me or a family member or something. So by the time you add that in, and the fact that, you know, you've got to stay in Thailand or wherever for several weeks really to recover properly, it's not a good idea to hop straight back on a plane home. And I probably wouldn't want to be flying cattle class coming home. The difference isn't that huge in the money. By getting it done here in Christchurch, I've got my team me around me. I've got my friends, I've got my family, I've got so much support. And I've also got the support of ACC if the operation gets botched or something. If you get surgery done overseas, that's great if all goes well. If something goes wrong, you've got nothing to fall back on. I can definitely see why, given the prices involved, why people would opt to go overseas though. It is very expensive in New Zealand. Just not for me. So I made the decision. Rang the surgeon back and said, yes, I definitely want to go ahead. Can we hold off for a couple of months though, because I've got some stuff at work that's going on that I want to see through, not be off work for weeks. And also I felt like it would be a good idea to just sit on the decision for a bit, and not that I expected to change my mind, but I just wanted to make sure I was 100% absolutely certain, and that by the time the surgery came I'd be still looking forward to it, which now that it's actually here is, yes, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm also dreading it, but you know, not the result. I'm dreading the surgery. And it's also been really useful having these couple of months just to organise my life, because you know, I'm going to be pretty much immobile for a week or two and not able to fully use my arms, and I won't be able to carry anything heavy, so I'm going to need people to help me with a lot of stuff around the house. The original plan was Mum was going to come up and look after me for the first week. Unfortunately she's had some health issues, which means she won't be able to be here, which I'm sad about, but her health is much more important obviously. And my friends have just been so amazing, because they've all stepped up to take over for Mum and to make sure I'm looked after. I'm going to be very, very well looked after, and I'm so thankful to all of my friends who are just going to look after me for that time, and I hope there's something I can do for all of them in return, because it's quite amazing. So that's the story so far. I'm obviously not going to be filming the surgery itself because I'll be unconscious, but I will hopefully be filming some bits and pieces once I get out of the hospital, and depending on how bad I feel. And I'll definitely film an update once I'm healed a bit, so that you can see the new improved me. In the meantime, don't forget to do all those nice internety things like and subscribe and leave comments, and I'll see you next time with a nice flat chest. This is so typical. I sit down to record and suddenly there's like so much traffic outside. There was nothing all morning. Hurry up, traffic. Waiting for the traffic to go past so it's not so noisy. And we wait yet again for the traffic to stop. I've seen so much traffic today. I don't know why there is so much traffic on the road today. Traffic, 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 traffic. Stop having such noisy vehicles. Oh, now the bus is going to come past.